Hello! Today we are making a bulrush handle. Recently I decided to weave such a handle. I watched a very old masterclass of mine and understood it is so out of date. So I felt like updating it based on the tubes I'm currently using, the way I process them, the quality of today's tubes, and so on. So today we are updating the way of creating a bulrush styled round handle. In order to make a handle neat, it is very important to prepare the tubes properly. You already know how to do it well, but let me remind you just in case. For my painting mixture I add some colorant and some varnish to white radiator enamel and mix it with water. I paint the tubes with this solution twice. Then I let the painted tubes dry and cover them with dew for coating, diluted with water 1:1. I let the tubes dry and store them in such a state. Well, they either get dried and I moisten them, or I keep them in the freezer and take them out before weaving. So the tubes have been prepared. Now, because my basket is not big, I take a piece of such thin coated wire. Here it is. I'm going to form a handle around one thread. I lead a wire through the tube. I need a long handle, so the one tube won't be enough. That's why I take 2 tubes and put them onto the wire like this. Let's take a look where the wire is going out of the tube. Here it is. Now I drop some glue. And join the tubes neatly. This way. That's all. The source where I found this handle years ago is Straw Weaving by Larissa Gurji, a well-known master. So I'm weaving this first option based on the required thickness. I'm going to weave with 5 tubes. Larissa proposes a different number of straws, but it's quite clear as the material is different. My tubes are thicker, so for my basket I need a handle of a smaller diameter. That's why I choose this option. 5 tubes and the base with a wire inside around which I'm going to weave. I join the tubes. There's such a nuance. I leave some space for inserting a tube of the base into weaving. As for working tubes, I leave longer tails in order to shape loops and fasten the handle. So approximately here I tie the tubes in order to start weaving. This way. Take notice once again, please. This tube with a shorter tail is the one with a piece of wire inside, and 5 more tubes with longer tails. Distribute the tubes in such a way so that 2 tubes are directed rightwards and 3 are directed leftwards. And start weaving. Lead the extreme right tube around the basic tube and lead it out in parallel. Lead the extreme left tube in front of the basic tube and lead it out in parallel. Work with the right tube again. Lead it in front of the basic tube and out, and work with the left tube again. Every time you take the lowest tube, zap, and the lowest left tube. The lowest tube, 1, 2. In order to get a bulrush neat, it is very important to place every next tube accurately along the previous strip. One, 2. I feel completely different while working with the new tubes. That's why I've decided to update the masterclass. The quality is completely different, so are the sensations and the result. In the old masterclass, I didn't draw enough of your attention to the process of lengthening. I only mentioned it in passing. Now I'm trying to make joints completely invisible. Let's analyze. I see there's little of my tube left. So I turn the workpiece over and check where the point will be to cover the cut. Here it is. This means that the joint has to be found here. Turn the workpiece over again, the way you weave. Make a very sharp cut for deep lengthening, because the tube gets twisted quite heavily. Let's even drop some glue. This way. And push the new tube until the required point. If you don't reach the point, it's better to step back and cut the old tube shorter. I seem to have succeeded in making a joint in the right point. Continue. Cover the joint with the next tube, the left one. Take all the same actions here. Let's repeat once again. Let's check if the previous joint is hidden well enough. It is quite invisible, everything's perfect. So let's mask the next joint in the same way. We already know how to do it. I try to make a cut in this very point and to mask it. Cut the end carefully. Push the tail of the old tube into the new one deep enough. Cover the joint. Try your best to hold the joint carefully with your fingers, but at the same time try to make the stitches tight. There's one more point where you can lengthen the tube. If I see that I'm running short of this tube, I can lengthen it here and cover the joint with the next one. Before lengthening, you take a look and determine where the next tube will cover the joint. It is where you can lengthen the tube. Zap. Cover the joint. Zap. The last lengthening at this stage, after which I'm going to continue weaving uninterrupted. Well, it would be much more convenient, of course, to lengthen different tubes in different points. Zap. Cover. That's all. Continue in a familiar way. I've managed to lengthen the tubes quite invisibly. It is also important to make sure that the weaving is smooth in the points of lengthening, because the tube ends are a bit too dry, because we do let them dry in order to make the process of lengthening easier. That's why I have to control the twists, make sure that the tubes don't move aside, but continue following each other in a smooth way. I'll have to lengthen the tubes a couple times more in order to finish wrapping the base all alone. We don't have to reach the very end, but leave the tails of the working tubes free in order to fasten the handle. Weave the handle over required length. In my case, I fit it to the one I've already got. I've cut off the excessive tail of the basic tube with wire inside. Now I prepare a gap in the basket, drop some glue, and lead the basic tube in as deep as I can. This way, and fasten the connection. Let's take a look. 2 tails go outside and 3 inside, and then vice versa. So, at first I prepare a gap and lead the tubes I've let inside out. I place them one after another neatly. This way, and the third one. The basket is not processed yet. The cuts will be coated later, which will make it look still neater. This way. Got it. Now lead these tubes in the opposite direction, inwards. Here. 1 and 2. Before I pull the loops too tight, let's lead the tails through them. And tighten the loops. Pull the loop tight carefully. Now turn the basket over and lead these tails through the loop in the same very way. You can use either a knitting needle here or a stick like this one. This way. Now tighten everything carefully once again. In this case I fasten the connection with glue, of course. I'll cut off and paint the excessive tails later. I've already understood that a connection like this is quite sufficient for such a small basket. If your basket is bigger and the handle is stronger, you need different connecting options. Join the other end of the handle to the basket in the same way. That's all. I've woven the handle, joined it to the basket, cut off the excessive tails. The only thing left is to glue and paint the cuts. Let's mix the paint thoroughly. After having painted the cuts, I tuck in the cuts carefully to make them unseen. Well, they are almost invisible. So I've got such a handle. It still requires priming and final coating with varnish. As a result, I've got such round handles. What I like about this pattern is the variety of possible options. We're going to discuss them in the next masterclass. I've decided to make a separate video because there's much to discuss about different varieties of such handles. Here you can see one more option on a different basket. As you can see, there can be one or two handles. Well, I'm sure experienced weavers will find an application for the handle if they like it. See you!